Hello, Year 8. Today we are going to be carrying on looking at standard form. You might recall last week, we were taking a number that was written in standard form and writing it as an ordinary number. What we're going to try and do this lesson is the exact opposite. So we're going to take a ordinary number and turn that back into standard form. So let's see how we're going to do that. So the first thing that we're just going to need to recall from last week is what a number in standard form looks like and what it means. And you might recall that we had something times 10 to the power of n. And the important thing to remember is this is a number between 1 and 10. And I've written that using an inequality this time. It says 1 is less than or equal to a is less than 10. So a is between 1 and 10, and the value of the power is an indication of how big or how small it was. Okay? So to turn a number into standard form, it's going to be really, really crucial to figure out what that value of a needs to be. So let's see how this first of all works with large numbers. Okay? So here are 4 questions, and we are going to try and turn each of these into a number in standard form. So the first thing to do is look at the number itself, 30,000, and look at the important digits. Well, the only important digit I've got there is the digit 3. And that is already between 1 and 10. So that makes my life nice and easy. I know the value of a has to be 3. And now I need to work out what the power is. Okay? Well, there's a couple of different ways to do this. You can do it in terms of thinking about place value and movement. But I actually like to use a little trick using the decimal point. Okay? Now, you might be saying, decimal point? There is no decimal point in the number 30,000. Well, there is a decimal point, we just don't write it down. But the decimal point would be there at the end of the number. What I like to do is use the kind of idea of place value and the number of jumps that a decimal point would make. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps for it to become the number 3. So I know that this is 3 times 10 to the power of 4. Okay? You could also think of it as 3 moving 4 place values. That's perfectly fine. But I've always liked to use the decimal point myself. Okay, let's look at the next one. We have the number 550,000. So again, I'm going to look at the important digits in this number. Everything else is zeros, but the important numbers are the 55, or the 5 and the 5. But 55 isn't a number between 1 and 10. But if I put a decimal point there and made it 5.5, well, that would be a number between 1 and 10. So my important number for A is 5.5 times 10 to the power. Well, how many places would I have to move 5.5 to make it 550,000? Well, again, I'm going to use my little decimal point jumping trick. So how many places has the decimal point jumped? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what I often find is when you get really, really good at standard form, you start getting a feel for looking at a normal number and just knowing, I know how big that number is. I know what that power is. All right, let's look at my third one. This time, ignoring the zeros, my important digits are 7 and 8. But I can't have 78, so it needs to be 7.8. So straight away, I know it is 7.8 times 10 to a certain power. Well, let's again count my decimal point jumps. The decimal point at 7,800 would be there. And it is 1, 2, 3 jumps to make it 7.8. So that is 7.8 times 10 to the 3. And on this last one, I'll just show you a little trick that you might be able to do once you start getting confident. So this is 92 million. My important digits are the 9 and the 2. So I need my decimal point to be there. Okay, so the important number at the front, my value of A is 9.2 times 10 to a certain power. Now, if a number has been written using commas, you can jump a little bit quicker, because I know that that is 3. This is perhaps more important on super large numbers. That's another 3. Jump there. I need to go to there. So altogether, I have jumped 7 places. So that is 9.2 times 10 to the power of 7. So let's see how this works for what I'm calling small numbers. And by small numbers, I just mean numbers that are less than 1, numbers that are decimals. So what you're going to find is it actually works in exactly the same way. Have a look at your number and think about the important digits. In this one, it is the number 2. So I know that this is going to be 2 times 10 to a certain power. Where do I need my decimal to jump to? Well, I need it to jump to the end of 2. That's where the decimal would be in 2. 1, 2, 3, 4 places. Times 10 to the power 4. But hang on a minute. It is a small number, so it's not power 4. It is negative 4. Looking at my second one, I've got the important numbers 85. So I need to make this a number between 1 and 10. So that is going to be 8.5. So again, I know that this one is 8.5 times 10. I'm going to put my negative power in already so I don't forget. How many places has this one jumped? 1, 2. Negative 2. Moving on. Now, this is the first one that I've done that's got 3 important numbers. Okay, so I'm going to ignore all the noughts, but my number in standard form must incorporate those digits 7, 1 and 9. So the number at the front has got to be between 1 and 10. It will be 7.19. Times 10. I'll put my negative power in already. How many places has it jumped? 1, 2, 3, 4 places. Negative 4. And finally, let's look at our last one. Yes, we might recognise that decimal as an eighth. But let's look at the important digits. I've got the digits 125, so I need it to be 1.25. And how many places has this one jumped? Well, we can see it is just 1 place. So it's 1.25 times 10 to the negative 1. Now, as you get more confident with standard form and you meet it again in year 9 and year 10, you might spot there's a super fast shortcut, particularly for these small numbers, for these ones that are negative powers. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that shortcut is, but 1 or 2 of you might spot it. And what I would suggest you do is, if you think you have spotted it, just drop me a quick email and say, "Is it this, sir?" And I'll be happy to reply and tell you whether you are right or wrong. So I've set you some questions to try, so go back to my instruction sheets, do have a look at which questions I'm asking you to do. Best of luck with it all. As always, if there's any problems, don't hesitate to drop me a little email and I'll see what I can do to help. But for the time being, that is me signing out, and goodbye.